Hare Krishna devotees, please accept my humble obeisances. All goes to Prabhupada and Guru Maharaj. So, I think Venu Prabhuji, whenever you're ready, you can start, Prabhuji.
Thank you, Prabhu. Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naranjaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudiraye Nashtaprayesha Badreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhakti Bhavati Naishtikim. Today I am reading Canto 2, Chapter 6 from text 40 onwards. Text 40-41. The personality of Godhead is pure, being free from all contaminations of material teenagers. He is the absolute truth and the embodiment of full and perfect knowledge. He is all pervading, without beginning or end, and without rival. O Narada, O great sage, the great thinkers can know him when completely freed from all material hankerings and when sheltered under undisturbed conditions of the senses. Otherwise, by untenable arguments, all is distorted, and the Lord disappears from our sight. Text 42. Karana, Karanavashayi Vishnu is the first incarnation of the Supreme Lord, and he is the master of eternal time, space, cause, and effects. Mind, the elements, the material ego, the modes of nature, the senses, the universal form of Lord, Garbhodaka Shai Vishnu, and the sum total of all living beings, both moving and non moving. Text 43 to 45. I myself, Brahma, Lord Shiva, Lord Vishnu, great generators of living beings like Daksha and Prajapati, yourselves, Narada and Kumaras, heavenly demigods like Indra and Chandra, the leaders of Burloka planets, the leaders of the earthly planets, the leaders of the lower planets, the leaders of Gandharva planets, the leaders of Vidyadhara planets, the leaders of Charana Loka planets, the leaders of Yakshas, Rakshas, and Ugras, the great sages, the great demons, the great atheists, and the great spacemen, as well as the dead bodies, evil spirits, satans, jinn, kushmandas, great aquatics, great beasts, and great birds, etc. In other words, anything and everything which is exceptionally possessed of power, opulence, mental and perceptual dexterity, strength, forgiveness, beauty, modest, opulence, and breeding, whether in form or formless, may appear to be specific truth and the form of the Lord, but actually they are not so. They are only a fragment of transcendental potency of the Lord. Text 46. O Narada, now I shall state, one after another, the transcendental incarnation of the Lord known as Leela Avataras. Hearing of their activities counteracts all foul matters accumulated in the ear. These pastimes are pleasing to hear and are to be relished, therefore, they are in my heart. Thank you, Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Yeah, thank you so much, Venu Prabhuji. Vamsi Prabhu, whenever you're ready, you can start.
Om Jnana-timirandasya Jnananjana-salakaya Satguru-militam yena Tasmai Shri-Gurave Namaha. Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna-prishthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta-swamini Namine. Namaste Saraswati-deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Sunyavadi Bhasyatyade-satarine. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gauravakta Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. So we are continuing chapter 6, verse 40 onwards. So the theme continues. Lord Brahma is instructing Sri Narad, and he's trying to answer question 4, which we saw in chapter 5. He asked a series of questions to Lord Brahma, and Lord Brahma is answering. He's answering question 4, where he's asking, who's the upon whom does this entire creation or universe confer? So until last week, text 39 was completed. Text 41 was the same thing, continues. So Lord Brahma is describing that the original creator is Lord Mahavishnu, and now from 40, text 40, it describes about the qualities. Okay, who's Mahavishnu? What are his qualities, right? Anyone can claim themselves to be God, but here Lord Brahma is clarifying that the personality of Godhead is pure and free from all contamination of material changes. Srila Prabhupada explains that Krishna is apart from, he is not bound by any temporary material conditions of this world. Like few Mayavadis or people who don't believe in the personal existence of the Lord, they think that Jivas like us and God are the same. But the problem is, Prabhupada is explaining the purport that Jivas, we have the tendency naturally, that is the reason why we are in this material world, that we get entangled within the three modes of material nature. But Krishna doesn't have this tendency to get, he's not influenced by any of this, even though he may be in different forms within this universe, he always remains transcendental. And Prabhupada explains, he gives examples. He mentions in the purport that we have the tendency to become contaminated, jivas. Even though after liberation, the living entity can become one in quality only. We cannot become God. In quality, we are same as Krishna. Satchidananda Vigraha. We are the soul and super soul are in one in quality, but not in quantity. But then Prabhupada says, he gives the example of, he always says that the Lord never gets contaminated by sins. Lord is compared to the powerful sun. Prabhupada often gives this analogy. Just like the sun is there, but even the most abominable thing that is lying on the road, maybe urine, stool, or anything, the sun can absorb all those things. But even though the sun absorbs, say, urine and stool, the stool over a period of time becomes dry and stool is completely absorbed, or the urine becomes completely absorbed. But then the sun remains pure. The sun never gets contaminated. Prabhupada often gives this example. So similarly, Krishna or his plenary expansions, like Lord Mahavishnu, they are never contaminated by the so-called material conditions of this world. And Prabhupada says in the purport, but Krishna is the source of everyone's opulence, and therefore no one can equal him in opulence, and he has all six opulences in full, right? Opulence, namely wealth, fame, strength, beauty, knowledge, and renunciation in full. There is no question of little bit here and there. In this world, we will see somebody really wealthy, somebody really poor, or like somebody is really famous. But we cannot find all opulences in full in one person. That is not possible. That is available only in the absolute personality of Godhead. Prabhupada also says that even the great souls who are liberated from this material world, meaning they may be in this material world, but they are not attached to the things in this world, but still they may not have conception of the absolute truth. Even they can get attracted, which we saw in the 7th chapter, right? Atma Ramasya Munayo. That verse is there, 177, where, or 10, I forgot which verse, but Prabhupada says, he recalls that verse, that Krishna's transcendental qualities are so attractive that even liberated souls are attracted by them. We will see why Prabhupada is saying all these things. And then later Prabhupada says in the purport, but who can see Krishna? We can see Krishna only when our senses are purified by bhakti, devotional service. Prabhupada often quotes this verse, Vedeshu durlabam adurlabam atma bhakto. To understand Vedas is very difficult. With our contaminated senses, I cannot penetrate into the true purport or the meaning of the scriptures. We cannot. Vedeshu Durlabham. That's why Lord Brahma prays in Brahma Samhita is Durlabha to understand Vedas, but it is also Adurlabha. How? Vedeshu Durlabha, Adurlabha Atma Bhakta. Only by the mercy of a pure devotee we can understand Krishna. And that's how we can purify our senses. Otherwise, we cannot understand. In fact, Prabhupada cries when he mentions this verse. Vedeshu Durlabha, Adurlabha Atma Bhakta. He remembers his spiritual master when he mentions this verse. Right? No one can be compared to Krishna. And the Vedas declare the same. And then finally, Prabhupada comes to the translation in the later portion of the purport. He says, only the unalloyed devotees of Krishna can know him to a greater extent. Something for us to ponder upon, right? Prabhupada in other places also writes, even a neophyte devotee like myself, who's just practicing, we can have some glimpse of Krishna. But to a greater extent means pure devotees bind Krishna. Prabhupada was often asked by reporters, what is so great about your movement? Do you think we don't know anything about God? What do you have come to give? Something new. Prabhupada often said that this Krishna consciousness movement is so great that God becomes bound to the devotee. But what kind of a devotee? Prabhupada is writing that in the purport, Prashantas or unalloyed devotees of Krishna can know him to a greater extent. That is the reason why we need to associate as much as possible with such devotees. And Prabhupada is giving the reason. The reason is that the devotees have no demands in their lives but to be obedient servants of Krishna. While all others, namely the empiric philosophers, mystics, fruity workers, karmakandis, right, all basically have some demand that cannot be pacified. As long as we have any tinge of material desire, we cannot understand Krishna, Prabhupada is saying. Right? We cannot know him to a greater extent, Prabhupada is saying. To know him in full, Krishna reveals himself to a person who's completely sold out to him. So we need to surrender to such a person who's completely out and out sold to Krishna. Otherwise, Prabhupada writes later in the last portion of the purport, sinless persons can, unless one is completely sinless, they cannot accept pure devotional service. Prabhupada ends the purport by quoting 728, Esham tva antagatam papam jananam punya karmanam te dvandva moha nirmukta bhajate mam dhrida vrita. Dhrida vrita means fixed in understanding that Krishna, no matter what, Krishna is there for us in life. To have that conviction, unless and until we become completely sinless, that conviction will never come to us. And Prabhupada is saying to become sinless. And I just wanted to point this out. Very, very simple way to become sinless. Prabhupada often says, right? Bhakti begins with the tongue. To vibrate Krishna's names by chanting the holy names. And most important thing is to only take prasadam. Not eat here and there. Not think, oh, maybe today is a holiday, let me do something else, let me eat something else. I'm feeling a little bit bored. These are all anarthas within our heart. In fact, there is one demon in Krishna's pastimes. I forgot the name of the demon. That demon represents this anartha of still having these bad tendencies of wanting to taste something that is not offered to Krishna. What Krishna says in the 3rd chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, he says that if we don't offer the food that we are taking without offering to him, it is sinful. And if we keep continuing to do this, we are blocked. I mean, we cannot go beyond a point. So it's very important for us to partake only bhoga that is offered to Krishna. Text 42, 40 and 41 was that. Text 42, it is mentioned that his zone of control. And what is Krishna's zone of control? And Mahavishnu is the first incarnation of Krishna. And he is the master of eternal time, space, cause and effects, mind, elements, material ego, mode of nature, the senses, and the universal form of the Lord, Garbhodakshaya Vishnu. He is the source of even Garbhodakashayi Vishnu, who is there within this universe, from whom Lord Brahma and all the living entities come. So he is what is the zone of control? He is the control of all these elements, like we saw: time, space, cause and effects, mind, ego, modes of nature, senses, and the sum total of all living beings. Prabhupada writes, illusion living entities are given a chance at intervals to rectify their perverted mentality of becoming false masters of material nature. See, at intervals, very important, something for us to meditate upon. At intervals. Why at intervals? Because this material world is for us to reform, not to come and enjoy it. So that's why Krishna sometimes at intervals, through his agencies like material nature or somebody else, somebody passes away, somebody near to us passes away, some natural calamity happens, corona comes suddenly, so many things, pandemics happen, all these things at intervals it comes, when we don't expect it comes, right? Why? Prabhupada is stating, it is a chance for us to rectify what? Our perverted mentality to enjoy this material world. Because we always want to lord it over. The Jiva has only two things that it can do. Either we can be attracted to Krishna, or we are social beings. I heard in one class, we are social beings. Either we have to socialize through our mind and senses, or we can practice bhakti. There is no in between. It's not that, oh, let me just be in between for some time. No, it's not possible. And then later in the purport, Prabhupada says the duration of the illusory play of material creation is called a kalpa. Prabhupada is defining what is the kalpa. And we have already discussed creation taking place in kalpa after kalpa. Right? And this is an illusory play of material creation. Prabhupada is stating this is a krida of Krishna. Ultimately, all these creative elements and creation itself are but potential manifestations of Krishna. Nothing is independent of the control of Supreme Being, Krishna. And Prabhupada quotes Brahma Samhita verse, Yasyaika Nisvashita Kalam Atavalambhya Jivanti Loma Vilaja Jagadandanada Vishnor Mahanya Sa Iha Yasya Kala Vishesho Govindamadi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami. Right? Even this Mahavishnu is a plenary portion of the portion of the portion of Krishna, who's there playing his flute in Golok Vrindavan. Prabhupada often finally comes back to his heart in all of his purpose. And in text 43-45, Lord Brahma is mentioning his position. None of the material things are Lord Swarupa. Anyone and anything in this world having various qualities may appear to be specific truth and forms of the Lord, but none of these are his Swarupa. All are only fragment of his transcendental potency. And Lord Brahma is saying, he's quoting himself, Lord Shiva, Gunavatar, which is Lord Vishnu, great generators of living beings, Daksha Prajapati, and all the other Prajapatis, Shiranard Muni, Kumaras, all the Devatas, all the different planetary residents like Gandharvas, Charana Loka planet residents, Yakshas, Rakshasas. He's saying these may all appear to be specific truth and the form of the Lord, but actually they are not so. Right? So we should believe in the words of a Mahajan. Mahajano ena gatasa panta. Right? Great personalities, when they speak something, it is absolute truth. There is nothing to say something beyond that, because they have seen the truth. They have seen Krishna. Right? Tad vidhi pranipatena pariprashnena sevaya. Lord Brahma has seen Krishna. So we have to believe his words. He is not some mundane person who has not seen Krishna. A person who has seen Krishna, when they speak, it is true because it penetrates our heart if we are receptive. Right? So every one of them possesses only a fragment of the great potencies of Krishna. All these personalities, they have some potencies, but it is only a portion of potencies that Krishna has. Prabhupada writes, merely the slight display of the Lord's potencies is captivating. Right? We can see around us, even this material world, sometimes some places appear so beautiful. right? But this is all just a fragment of Krishna's potency. Krishna explains in the 10th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, right? All these are all just a fragment of his splendor. Anything we see beautiful, anyone we see that who is beautiful, he or she is beautiful. These are all just fragment of Krishna's energy. In fact, Prabhupada said one devotee was looking at some female who was looking beautiful crossing, and then he turned like this, and Prabhupada was standing right next to him. And Prabhupada said, "Oh, do you think she is beautiful?" That disciple, he can't lie in front of his guru. He said yes, and Prabhupada said, "That is all right, but if you see whomever you saw is so beautiful, you should think how beautiful the Creator is, how beautiful Krishna is." Right? We can see from the descriptions of the pages of Srimad Bhagavatam. And then later, Prabhupada writes, this is something amazing. He writes, what is the end result for a modern scientist? The modern scientist is also captivated by the wonderful actions and reactions of natural phenomena. Therefore, they are also Shaktas. Shakta means who are Durga Devi is the one who is actually captivating all of us in this material world. But even the modern scientist can also be called Shakta. These low-grade persons gradually rise to become Shauryas, Prabhupada. Gradually they become, and they become worshippers of sun god. Or Ganapatyas, worshippers of Lord Ganapati. And then they gradually rise to the platform of worshipping Lord Shiva. The Prabhupada is giving, this is the vision of a person who has come from the spiritual world. So everyone is gradually rising up from a mundane person who is trying to find out what is the root cause of this material world through modern science and everything. Maybe it may take several lifetimes, Prabhupada is saying, but they gradually rise to become worshippers of sun god or Lord Ganapati, and then finally worship Lord Shiva in search for ever-existing souls. And then they come to the stage of worshipping Lord Vishnu, still without any information of Govinda, Lord Krishna, who is the original Lord Vishnu. This is something very important. We have to feel so much eternally grateful to Srila Prabhupada and many of his disciples now who are taking their time out. Not just their time, they are giving their heart and soul to go and knock at people's consciousness and give them directly the consciousness of Krishna. Otherwise, it would have taken many millions of years for us. How much more grateful we have to be to Srila Prabhupada and his disciples. So many great souls are there who are trying to give Krishna directly to us. Right? Prabhupada often said, you never had any qualifications, I made your qualification. We had no qualifications to know about Krishna. And then in the end, Prabhupada writes in the purport, when the Lord actually descends on earth or anywhere within the universe, the less intelligent class of men also mistake him to be one of them. That is the problem. People think Krishna to be an ordinary person, right? Factually, the Lord is not formless, nor does he belong to any of the multi-forms experienced within the universal form. One should try to know the truth about the Lord by following the instruction of Brahmaji. Prabhupada concludes the purport, right? So we should accept the statement of a Acharya. Right? Lord Brahma is the Acharya. He is an Acharya of our Sampradaya. So all these statements by Lord Brahma is absolute truth, Prabhupada is writing. So we have to accept it as an instruction and try to follow in our life. And in the last word, Lord Brahma is saying, now he shall describe about the Leela avatar of Krishna. And he's saying, what is the effect of hearing about Krishna and his expansion? Hearing of the Leela avatars and their activities counteracts all foul matters accumulated in the year. Anything that is going all nonsense or anything that may not be favorable for bhakti, that keeps bombarding us throughout the day, throughout the year, all those things will gradually go away. It won't affect our heart anymore. And these pastimes are pleasing to hear and are to be relished. Matchitta matgata prana bodhenta parasparam. Krishna says that the devotees, when they meet with each other, they don't talk prajalpa. They want to talk, Prabhu, what did you hear today? What did you hear during this week? What inspired you? What did you hear about Krishna? This is what we see in Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, when Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu goes and visits so many devotees across India, wherever he traveled. No business talking about anything else. Day and night he will be talking about Krishna. Day and night they will be talking about Krishna. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is showing us as devotees what we need to be aspiring to do. And Prabhupada writes in the purport, one cannot be fully satisfied by hearing unless and until one is given a chance to hear of the transcendental activities of the Lord. Our heart is not satisfied unless we hear about Krishna. So Brahmaji is also trying this work to stress the importance of narrating the transcendental pastimes of Krishna as he comes and manifests himself here on the surface of the material planet. Srimad Bhagavatam is not different from Krishna. So whenever we get an opportunity to talk to people, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, Yaredeko Tarekaho Krishna Upadesh. No philosophy Upadesh, Krishna Upadesh. Of course, we have to give some basics to people, but we have to give them some pastime of Krishna. Because that's when the soul gets satisfied. That is the instruction of Brahma here. Every living entity has a tendency to hear pleasing messages. This is very important. And as such, almost every one of us is inclined to hear something. Right? All of us want to hear something. But the difficulty is that no one is satisfied at heart by hearing all such other messages. The cause of such dissatisfaction is the incompatibility of the message with the soul. Prabhupada is making very clear here. If we talk anything, if we hear anything that is not connected with Krishna, we heard in the second canto earlier chapters, it's just pilgrimage of crows, Srila Sukadeva Goswami says. The place where Krishna's and Krishna's pastimes are not being spoken is pilgrimage of crows. Right? We cannot be in such place. If anybody is speaking gossip, anybody is trying to find fault with something, we have to do something and get out of that place first. Right? And then Prabhupada writes in the purport also, this transcendental literature is especially prepared by Srila Vyasadeva. For what? Srimad Bhagavatam is prepared for what? To give the utmost satisfaction to the people in general by narration of activities of Krishna as instructed by Sri Narad Muni to Srila Vyasadeva. Such activities of Krishna are principally of two varieties. One is mundane manifestation of this material creation, and the other deals with his pastimes in his different incarnations, according to time, place, and circumstance. But the less intelligent persons take more interest in the creative forces of this material world. But devotees, this is something for us to meditate upon. Devotees of Krishna, however, know well how the creative forces work concurrently by the action and reaction of the material energy of the Lord. Therefore, they take more interest in transcendental activities of the Lord as he incarnates himself on the surface of material world. So this doesn't mean that, oh, I just skip fifth canto. I skip all the third canto which talks about Sankhya Yoga. This is all too much talking about all this creation. I just want to hear about Krishna. No. Then otherwise, why Srila Vyasadeva has to speak all these things or narrate in Srimad Bhagavatam, right? Everything mentioned in Bhagavatam is important for us to gain the conviction. And then when we hear Krishna's pastimes, we will relish it more. That is the purport that Prabhupada is writing here. The devotees know well how the creative forces work, Prabhupada is writing. He doesn't write that, oh, it's okay, we'll just skip it. In fact, Srila Sukadeva Goswami mentions in the fifth canto, I forgot which verse, he mentions that it is imperative for the devotees to understand about the creation and have the conviction that this is all not mundane mythology. No. It is important for us to understand about Sankhya, about time and space and everything. And that's when we really understand Krishna is so great, I am so insignificant. Unless and until I understand and have this conviction that Krishna is great, we cannot enter into the pastimes of Krishna in the 10th canto. We cannot. That is why Prabhupada always says, gradually go from the first canto to the 9th canto, and then we can relish the pastimes of Krishna. Right? And finally, the last sentence Prabhupada punches. Srimad Bhagavatam is a history of such activities of Krishna, and people who take interest in hearing Srimad Bhagavatam, what is the effect of hearing Srimad Bhagavatam? It cleanses our hearts of accumulated mundane filth. Prabhupada said he's using filth. All the mundane filth that is there within our heart are gradually cleansed. There are so many rash literatures on the market, but one who takes interest in Srimad Bhagavatam loses all interest in such filthy literature. All of us have this experience. As soon as a person tastes Srimad Bhagavatam, through the mercy of the Acharyas, all other interests are gradually going down. Higher taste. And then finally, Prabhupada writes, Sri Brahmaji is thus attempting to narrate these principal incarnations of Krishna so that they may be drunk by Sri Narada Muni as transcendental nectar. Very important. This is the role, this is the duty of a guru. A guru should enlighten his or her disciple. In what? In narrating the sweet pastimes of Krishna, in narrating the sweet pastimes of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. When we hear these pastimes, the disciple will lose taste of this material world. It is natural effect. Vasudeve Bhagavati Bhakti Yoga Prayojitaha Janayati Ashu Vairagyam Jnanam Chatya Ahitukam. Detachment comes automatically and attachment to Krishna increases. And this is the duty of a guru. And we saw in Mahaprabhu's pastimes, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu goes to Tota Gopinath temple and hears from Gadadhar Pandit every day Srimad Bhagavatam. Of course, he had many other reasons to hear Srimad Bhagavatam from Gadadhar Pandit, but he's showing us as an example. Not once, twice. He used to hear Dhruva Maharaj and Sri Prahlad Maharaj's pastimes again and again and again. I mean, we have to hear Srimad Bhagavatam again and again. It is not just once I hear one pastime, no. Again and again. Am I able to remember and smaran? Haripashad Prabhu, when he came here, he mentioned, right? Am I able to have smaranam of a particular incident or pastime of Krishna? If I'm not able to do that, then I have to hear again and again. Again and again. And that is the role of an Acharya. And Prabhupada has given this Bhagavatam for us so that every day we can study and remember Krishna. Very easily, Prabhupada has given this. 50 years ago, Amrendra Prabhu said in one of his very famous classes, 50 years ago, nobody had access to Bhagavatam. And now Bhagavatam is available in so many languages. And all the wonderful devotees in our temple are going and distributing Bhagavatam. Why? To give people access to Krishna directly. Otherwise, like Prabhupada mentioned, it takes several lifetimes. I'll stop here. Jagat Guru Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. I offer my respectful obeisances to all the Vaishnava devotees in the call. Vancha kalpatarubhyasya kripa sindhubhye vacha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda ki jai. Hare Krishna, Mataji.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Please accept my humble obeisances. Prabhuji, I have a question that we oftentimes hear that listening and chanting will clean our heart. And so, what does the heart mean here? Is it our mind intelligence? Is it referring the subtle body, mind intelligence? And means what does the heart define here?
So the heart is the place where the soul and the subtle elements reside, right? So Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu mentions in his Shikshashtakam prayers that in the very first verse, Cheto Darpanam Arjanam, Bhava Maha Davagni Nirbhava, right? Cheto Darpanam, right? By chanting and hearing Krishna's pastimes, all the contaminations on the heart, he compares the heart to be a mirror, right? The mirror is covered by dust. And what is that dust? What Srila Prabhupada mentions in the purport here. To lord it over material nature. To lord it to gratify our mind and our senses and our ego. Right? all this dust which is accumulated in our heart for many millions of years. It will take time. It takes time for all of us to cleanse this. But when we hear and chant the glories and names of Krishna, all these tendencies to enjoy our senses and mind and ultimately our ego will gradually reduce. And this is what it actually means, according to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, when Srila Prabhupada says here, cleanses our heart. All the bad tendencies of lust, anger, greed, envy, pride, illusion. Illusion is nothing but trying to enjoy this world. All these gradually reduce. The more we hear and chant the holy name, the more we hear about Krishna in the right attitude. Not initially we want to do it as a matter of duty, as a matter of pleasing our superiors and spiritual master, but gradually we will want to do more because we are seeing some changes, right? His Grace Sundarandas Prabhuji often says, just look back at ourselves, maybe a few months ago, 1 year ago, 2 years ago, right? Maybe I'm still having anger. I can talk at least about myself, but I was more angry 6 months ago, 1 year ago, but it is reducing, right? So that is cleansing of the heart. Is that okay, Mataji?
Yes, Prabhuji. So the heart means here the subtle body, right? What is now materially contaminated, but with listening Krishna Katha and chanting, it will be cleansed.
Correct. Yes. In essence, it is the subtle body that will be not essentially cleansed. The dust is removed, and then the ego doesn't go away. The ego is transformed from false ego to true ego.
True ego, yeah.
Yes.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Mataji. Thank you, Prabhuji.
Yeah, thank you so much, Vamsi and Prabhu, for a wonderful class. Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.